The situation unfolding around the WNBA's latest CBA negotiations feels less like routine labor talks and more like a slow-motion collision between ambition and reality. What was supposed to be a celebratory moment for the league, a turning point that finally signaled real financial respect for its athletes, has instead spiraled into one of the most controversial and emotionally charged debates the league has faced in years. At the center of it all is a proposal that on the surface looks revolutionary: seven-figure base salaries, a dramatically expanded salary cap, and the promise of real revenue sharing. Yet the deeper you go, the clearer it becomes that this moment is defined not by progress, but by contradiction. The league is asking players to celebrate historic pay raises while quietly removing something far more fundamental from their daily lives. Team-provided housing, a benefit that has been in place since 2016, has suddenly been stripped from the proposal. This is not some small perk. This is stability. This is security. This is the difference between arriving in a new city focused on basketball and arriving stressed, scrambling, and uncertain. The shockwaves from this decision were immediate because it exposes a deep disconnect between the league's leadership and the lived reality of its players. You cannot claim to prioritize athlete welfare while simultaneously pulling away one of the most basic forms of support, especially in a league where many players are constantly relocating, balancing overseas commitments, and navigating short-term contracts. What makes this even harder to swallow is the timing. The housing cut arrives at the exact moment the league is touting seven-figure maximum salaries as proof that everything has changed. The messaging feels almost insulting. On one hand, the league is saying, look how far we've come, while on the other hand, it's signaling that players should now fend for themselves when it comes to housing, even though this benefit exists in developmental leagues like the G League. That comparison alone is staggering. A league striving to be seen as top-tier is removing a standard that even lower-paying leagues recognize as essential. Yes, the numbers being discussed are massive compared to the past. A league where the maximum salary once hovered around $220,000 is now talking about minimum salaries exceeding that amount. The salary cap potentially jumping from $1.5 million per team to $5 million is not nothing. These figures matter. They represent growth, opportunity, and long overdue recognition of value. But money does not exist in a vacuum. When higher pay is paired with cost-cutting measures that directly impact quality of life, the generosity begins to feel hollow. It starts to resemble a trade-off rather than true progress. The housing decision is especially damaging for players on the margins. Rookies, hardship contract players, and athletes bouncing between short-term deals are the ones who feel this first and hardest. These are players who may be called up with little notice, expected to relocate instantly, and now potentially left without guaranteed housing support. That is not professional. That is not sustainable. And it sends a message that the league is willing to sacrifice its most vulnerable athletes in pursuit of financial optics. As if that were not enough, the league has also floated a dramatically earlier season start. Training camps as early as mid-March would collide directly with the NCAA tournament, rival leagues, and international commitments. This is not just inconvenient. It is chaotic. The WNBA already operates on a compressed calendar. For many players, the off-season is not rest, it is survival. Overseas leagues and emerging ventures like Project B and Unrivaled are not hobbies. They are critical income streams and, in many cases, business investments where players hold ownership stakes. Forcing an earlier WNBA start without offering a fully guaranteed year-round professional structure is effectively asking players to choose between loyalty and livelihood. That choice is deeply unfair. It also reveals the underlying tension in these negotiations. The league appears to be trying to consolidate control without openly acknowledging it. Instead of directly addressing how off-season leagues fit into the WNBA's long-term vision, leadership seems to be maneuvering schedules in a way that quietly squeezes players out of those opportunities. This passive-aggressive strategy risks alienating the very stars who have driven the league's recent surge in popularity. Players are not just athletes anymore. They are entrepreneurs, investors, and cultural figures. Treating them like assets to be boxed in rather than partners to collaborate with is a recipe for resentment. The logistical issues do not stop there. An earlier season start throws the draft into complete disarray. Either rookies will be drafted while still competing in college championships or drafted and forced to wait nearly a year to play. Neither scenario makes sense. These oversights point to a leadership structure reacting to momentum rather than planning for it. The league is growing faster than its decision-makers seem prepared to handle, and that gap is becoming painfully visible. At its core, this entire situation feels like the consequence of years of deferred planning. The WNBA is finally experiencing unprecedented attention, revenue potential, and cultural relevance. Instead of meeting this moment with thoughtful, player-centered leadership, the league is making rushed decisions that undermine trust. Removing housing and extending the season without solving existing issues around travel, rest, and injuries does not signal confidence. It signals panic. This is a defining moment. The league can either recalibrate, listen, and build a structure that truly supports full-time professional athletes, or it can continue down a path that prioritizes control and optics over sustainability. Million-dollar salaries mean little if the foundation beneath them is unstable. Growth without empathy is not progress. It is a gamble. As fans, players, and observers watch this unfold, the bigger question looms. Can the WNBA's leadership rise to meet the league's potential, or will these short-sighted moves derail everything they've worked for? Does removing housing and squeezing schedules actually strengthen the league, or does it expose a system still struggling to value the people who make it possible? Drop your thoughts in the comments, share where you stand on the CBA battle, and if you want more deep breakdowns on the biggest moments shaping women's basketball, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay locked in for what comes next.